Hello, I'm pastorrcblakes, and today I want to have a conversation which centers around a woman that is, let's say, 40 plus, even 35 or older, who's struggling with her queen consciousness. In other words, she's struggling to hold on to her sense of worth and value and importance in the earth, simply because she's not married. Let's talk about that when I get back.
Let's talk.
You don't know how to be an individual.
And we want to get back to our discussion on race relations in the United States. Pastor R.C. Blakes Jr. joins me now live in New Orleans.
And as leaders on a local level, when we begin to combat the rhetoric with truth.
Pastor, thank you so much for joining me. It's such a horrific conversation that we even have to be having.
Let us talk with R.C. Blakes Jr. Let's talk.
Hello and welcome again to my channel. I want to thank you for all of the support that you guys give me from around the world. It is absolutely amazing. And actually, my conversation today centers around feedback that I've gotten from women all across the United States of America and abroad, but mostly from the United States of America and probably the UK. The demographics of my channel line up in such a way that the greater percentage of my audience is between the ages of 35 and 60, female. And a lot of you all, I'm certain, that are watching this now have sent questions and emails and what have you to me regarding, how does a woman deal with not being married beyond a certain age? And I've been wanting to answer it. Life has just been moving so quickly that I've not been able to do as much content as I would like to have been able to do. But today, fortunately, I get a chance to address this most important issue, because this is a struggle that women all across the United States of America and even the world, I think, have. It's this issue with attaching one's identity, one's value, one's worth to his or her marital status. And for women, this is, extremely volatile to have to say that I'm not married beyond a certain age. And society even plays upon this or these insecurities within the woman. Society says, well, if you're not married by such and such an age, there's something broken with you. There's something wrong with you. And what happens is the woman begins to slowly and sometimes even quickly deteriorate in her own consciousness. And by this, I mean her queen consciousness is what I call it in my book, Queenology. Her queen consciousness diminishes. Her capacity to see herself as valuable, her capacity to self-love, her capacity to envision a bright and great future somehow dissipates under the falsehood of, my not being married at a certain age makes me less than. And it is certainly a falsehood. And what happens is when you do not have a grasp or a handle, when you don't process life through the right filters, you allow the destructive conditionings of the world to guide your self-assessments. When you don't have a means of processing life through godly and wise and truthful filters, you allow the self-destructive conditionings of the world to skew your self-assessment. In other words, now the world is dictating to you from outside who you are, what you're worth, what your value is based on X, Y, and or Z, when the reality is that your creator, God, is the only one who reserves the right to define you or to place value on you. Your value is supposed to always come from within and never from without. When I begin, the process of assessing certain value to myself based on anything external, I am then in a very unhealthy place emotionally and probably mentally and psychologically, rather, because external factors shift and change too frequently. One has to be based, one has to be grounded, one has to be established from within oneself. So anything that dictates your value, or you allow to dictate value to you or place value upon you, that comes from without, or let me put it this way, anything that is outside of your control that you allow to determine your self-assessed value is not from God, and it puts you in a very unhealthy place emotionally and mentally. You're never supposed to say, okay, I'm worth this much because this happened or that happened from the outside. No. Your value is innate. It is built in from the very beginnings. And, if I'm married, if I'm not, that has no impact on my value. It has no impact on my worth. It has no impact upon me as an individual in no shape, form, or fashion. But the world has built into your psyche to believe that you have to be married as a woman to be worth something. So you have your counterparts, unmarried men at 35, 40, and 50, and they don't seem to be struggling with the idea that they aren't married. But yet you as a woman, you're struggling. Why is this? It is because the world has conditioned both of you differently. The world has never raised a man to believe that his value or his worth is attached to his relational or marital status. So he lives his life, he loves God, he succeeds in his career. If he never gets married, it doesn't really have that great of an impact on him mentally in most cases. But for most women, the world conditions you to believe if you're not a mother, if you're not a wife, something's wrong with you. And this begins even as you're little girls. We give you the dolls and we give you the playhouses. And that is subconsciously building within the framework of your thought system that if I don't have a child, if I don't have a house, if I don't have a husband, there's something broken in me. And this is not the case. Because, I think the problem arises, and I have just a few points I'm going to deal with, and then I'm going to be done. But I think the problem arises when we begin to treat marriage as though it is an accomplishment. And that is the way, and my making that statement, I know just kind of shook a lot of you to your core, because that's how you viewed it all of your life or all of your adult life, and you didn't realize it. You have viewed marriage as an accomplishment. And marriage is really not an accomplishment. It is a sacrifice. It is really a call to duty. It is it's not an accomplishment. It's not like, okay, I'm married, so now I'm successful. No. Marriage has absolutely nothing to do with accomplishment. Now, being married the right way, And staying married, of course, that's an accomplishment. To do it the right way is an accomplishment. But to get married is not an accomplishment. This is why most marriages fail. Or at least 50%. Last time I think I heard it was like 50%. Maybe even creeping a little higher. Fail. It's because people get married thinking that the marriage or the wedding is an accomplishment, not understanding that the real accomplishment is not in one getting married. The real accomplishment is in one being successfully single. And it is only when one is successfully, happily single and fulfilled as a single individual that one really even qualifies or has what it takes to come into a merger or a marriage and then succeed at marriage. But your getting married is not an accomplishment. There are many of you, as we're going to see in just a minute, who are forfeiting many great years that should be utilized towards the end of true accomplishment as an individual. And you're wasting it. You're wasting your years away. You're wasting decades away that you could be using and funneling or directing your energies towards greater goals. You could be accomplishing great things and you're missing it all because you're in a perpetual state of depression because of your marital status. And you keep telling people about how old you are. I'm 35 now. I'm 40 now. I'm 50 now. I'm 55. What's wrong with me? Okay, let me jump in. I didn't mean to go on that rant, but there are like 4 things I want to share with you that play into the psyche of a woman past the age of 35, 40, 50, 55, 60, and I'm not married. Or, I don't have I'm not married, or I don't have a significant other, not a real significant other. Nobody that has the potential of possibly becoming a husband. The number one thing that happens that begins to break your psyche down, break you down emotionally, and begins to create this inner turmoil and this relational crisis. The first thing that comes across your mind is, I'm not beautiful. Okay, let me rephrase that. I am not married because I'm not beautiful, and I'm not beautiful because of my age. Let me say this to you. Your age has absolutely nothing to do with your attractiveness. Your age has absolutely nothing to do with your eligibility. But so many women buy into the idea that older means less attractive or less eligible. And the reality is that age has never truly determined beauty. Age has never truly determined beauty. Beauty comes from essence, from the inner workings of the woman. Beauty comes from the essence of the woman and from the self-care of the woman, the way the woman thinks about herself and the way the woman takes care of herself. Now, the irony is that the toxic thoughts a woman has about age, these lies that society pours into your minds about age. It's amazing how a woman hits 30 years old, which is a baby, and she begins to have this crisis about, I'm 30 years old. I'm 30 years old. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. You're a baby, man. You just really got here. But it's amazing how these toxic thoughts take a woman and it darkens her essence. It darkens her soul. And then her persisting self-loathing breaks her looks. Now, what did I just say? These toxic thoughts about I'm not beautiful because I'm older it darkens or corrupts the woman's soul, her mind, her emotions. And then as she persists in, this series of lies that the world pours into her mind, her negative thought system breaks her looks. So now she's actually wrinkling when she should be smooth, and because she feels so poorly about herself, her demeanor is aging her. It's not even her number as much as it is her mentality. My point is, because you've bought into this lie that age determines beauty, you have put a shade over the true essence of your beauty, and you've done it by your own hand. You've done it by your own thought system. Now, let me give you a biblical, because I'm a firm believer. I talk to women all the time, obviously. And, with a grown man's mind, I can't speak for every man, but with a grown man's mind, the way I see the beauty of a woman is that the older a woman gets, the wiser a woman gets, the more beautiful she is. So gray hair, silver hair, a wrinkle here or there, it does not impact a woman's beauty in a negative sense. It makes a woman even more beautiful to a grown man. Jesus, I just said something. I felt it too. In Genesis 20, verses 1 through 3, here we see the record of Abraham's wife, Sarah. Now, I want to read this for you, and I want you to pay attention, because some of you, because you've been so conditioned by the world, you're not acknowledging or even recognizing the beauty that you are. The beauty that you are. It's not the beauty that you have. It's the beauty that you are. You are beauty. God made you that way. But the world has made you believe that once you pass a certain number on a calendar, that you're no longer beauty. But you are beauty for the rest of your days. You are beauty. Listen to what the word of God says about Abram's wife, Sarah. In Genesis 21 through 3, and Abraham journeyed from there toward the south country and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, he said of his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took or kidnapped Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, behold, thou art but a dead man for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. So this king Abimelech wanted to take Abraham's wife Sarah. Now here's the kicker. She's around 90 years old at this point. She's around 90 years old at this point, and there's something about her that this man wanted, so much so that he kidnapped her. If you read, a little earlier, you read where I think Pharaoh, when she was about 65, I think it was, another man wanted to take her. Sarah was a beautiful woman from her youth through her old age. So much so that men desired her. And you're sitting there watching me right now at 40 or 50, 55, 60, and you're telling me that you can't imagine yourself as beautiful? Nobody is beautiful. Listen to this statement very carefully. I must read it. Nobody is beautiful to everybody, because beauty is subjective. However, the ignition of beauty is in the soul of the individual. If you don't own your beauty, you can't sell your beauty. The Holy Spirit just gave me that as I was preparing to talk to you all. Let me read it one more time. The ignition of beauty. What is an ignition? It's in your car. The ignition is what starts it. The ignition of beauty is in the soul of the individual, the mind of the individual. If you don't own it, you can't sell it. In other words, there are a lot of you that are watching me right now. Because you don't own your beauty, you can't sell it. Nobody can discern it because you don't own it. You cannot project what you do not own. And for some of you, this has been an issue not only in later years, even in your younger years. You never believed in your own worthwhile or your own beauty or your own value or your own attractiveness. You've always downplayed it. You never bought into it. But you have to own it to sell it. The person that God has put in the earth for you cannot find you if you don't project yourself. And while you're sitting here and you're just beating yourself up over the fact that you're so many decades old and you're telling yourself all of this negative, toxic stuff that I'm not beautiful because I'm this age or that age, you're working against yourself. Number two, second thing that happens in the mind of a woman that comes to a certain age and she's not married or she doesn't have a significant other, is that she has to do some introspection to determine what kind of man are you attracted to. What kind of man are you attracted to? Because as I'm going to teach in my program relative to the father wound, quite often a woman is attracted to a man that does not possess the capacity to commit. And she wonders, why is it that nobody's ever married me? It's because all of her life she's been attracted to men that did not have the capacity to commit. And in that program, one of the points we bring out is that a woman with a father wound, father who wasn't there and did not nurture her, is quite often attached to or attracted to a man with a father wound. A woman develops this insatiable desire and need for the affirmation of a man. A man with a father wound develops the inability, or he develops the inability to attach and to show emotion or to consider himself locked down to anything. He learned how not to commit by his father's abandonment. And so you have these two toxic people attracted to one another. And quite often, sometimes, it's not that you've not had men that would have been husbands, it's that you've always been attracted to men that don't possess the character or the capacity to commit. And now it's just dawning on you. See, when you were younger, they were fun to play with because you felt like you had years. But now since you're at a certain age, you feel like you don't have no more years. So now it's really becoming serious to you. But you have to, first of all, go inside and you have to ask yourself, what kind of man am I attracted to? Am I just attracted to men that don't possess the capacity to commit? You need a man that is suitable for you. Because too often grown women are still attracted to little boys. Little boys play games. Sometimes you need to revisit your ideas of what turns you on in a man. And you need to ask yourself why. See, if at 40 years old, your criteria for a man is the same as it was when you were 20, it means that you've not evolved. It means that you've not grown. If you're still looking for the same stuff in a man at 40 that you was looking for in a man at 20, which really at 20 you didn't realize it, you were looking at grown boys. Really, that's what they amounted to, just grown boys. They were men in age or in calendar years, but mentally they were little boys. And some of you at 40 are still looking, you still have the same criteria. Now, because you've not evolved, you're not attracted to the men that would be suitable for you. Okay, here it is. It's like, okay, it's like a man. Okay, I just made a statement. I said, because you've not evolved in your own thinking, you're attracted to the men, or you're not attracted to the men or the man that would actually be suitable for you. Because most of you that are watching me right now have had men that would be suitable for you approach you, but you wrote them off because they didn't fit your criteria. But you've not taken the time to think about the fact that your criteria is outdated. It's kind of like, here's an illustration. It's like a man that puts on 200 pounds, and prior to the 200 pounds, he could go and shop and buy Italian suits. Well, any man that knows anything about Italian suits knows that they're cut very, 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 very tight. Very, very tight, very, very close. And after you get beyond a certain weight, I don't care how nice you think those suits look, an Italian suit shop is not suitable for you anymore. So it means that you have to make an adjustment. You have to find, you've gained 200 pounds, bro. You have to find a suit shop that is suitable for you. More than likely, you're going to probably have to get a tailor to tailor make your stuff for you. But you can't go back to what you used to wear when you were 25, 200 pounds ago. It is no longer suitable. And there are a lot of you ladies who are still trying on little boys in your grown woman state. And the reality is that, quite frequently you have great men, grown men, who are trying to send signals respectfully, and you can't even receive the signals because you're so used to, the way the little boys approach you. You like the little boys screaming at you across the parking lot. You want, you 40 years old, 50 years old, you still want somebody with cornrows or braids or whatever, they call it, You still looking for, somebody to mama. What's up, mama? You still looking for that. When you need a man that is suitable for you. Sometimes you're without a man, not because there was not a man, it was because you just didn't recognize him. Because your criteria. And the Bible says in Genesis 2:18, and the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I'll make him an helpmeet. And when you look at that, it literally translates as one that is suitable. Just because you're attracted to a person does not mean that they are suitable. Now, the greatest aspects of suitability are a few things: shared spiritual commitments, shared financial philosophies, common aspirations, and mutual respect. Now, all of that stuff I just rambled off there, has absolutely nothing to do with your looks, and of course, I'm not suggesting to you that you should connect yourself to somebody that you can't stand to look at. But I am saying that while you put, a man's looks at the top of the ladder, it really needs to be down, in other words, there are a lot of things that need to come before looks. You know why I say that? Looks don't last. I can show you a picture of my wife and I when we first got married. We do not look the same. People say, oh, y'all look the same. No, we don't look the same. We don't look the same. Neither one of us look the same. Looks dissipate. If there were not something more to my wife than her looks, if there were not something more to me than whatever looks I had, then who knows? Our marriage probably would not have made it, or certainly would not be a happy marriage, because there are things that have to come before looks. So number two, you have to know that you need a man that is suitable for you. The men that you're running behind, the men that you desire, are quite often not even men, and they're not suitable. So you need to rethink this. Number three, you need to ask yourself, why is marriage so important to you? Why is it that you're so obsessed with marriage? Marriage is a great thing. I love being married. It's a wonderful thing to have a partner. It's a wonderful thing to have somebody to share your life with. Marriage is a wonderful and beautiful institution. But, why? Why do you need to be married? I just mentioned some things and that many of you have not even thought about. In most cases, people want to be married. Women want to be married because they need it. And see, if you need to be married, you don't need to be married. That's a t-shirt right there. If you need to be married, you don't need to be married. If you need to be married, it means that you will be needy, which means that you're going to be a burden on somebody. If you need to be married, you don't need to be married. Some people desire marriage so strongly because it's the only thing that they feel will give them some sense of self-esteem. Self-esteem does not come from anywhere else but self. From within oneself, and ain't but two inside of self, and that will be you and God. Marriage is not going to give you self-esteem. Some people want to be married so badly because they need an identity. They feel like a nobody. So they feel like marrying somebody, getting somebody's name is going to give them an identity. Sometimes it does give you an identity. Statistic, abused, it does give you an identity in some cases. Now, the people who attract mates generally don't feel like they need one. And I just kind of emphasize that. There's something about self-love that is extremely attractive to others who love themselves. And see, if you're going to attract a husband is a man that is secure in himself, loves himself enough to love his wife. A wife is a woman who is secure within herself, loves herself enough to love her husband. You can't bring two half, a half a tennis shoe and a half a tennis shoe does not make a pair. You got to have a whole tennis shoe and a whole tennis shoe to make a pair. You can't have a half of an individual who feels like they need another person to make them whole and join them with another person and create a marriage. It does not. It creates something the world calls wedlock, where you just kind of locked into something that is not fulfilling, not God ordained, because you got married for the wrong reason. You're supposed to get married because you're enjoying your life and you want to share what God has given you, and God is putting you with someone else who is equally yoked, somebody else who's enjoying their life as much, and the two of you come together to create something greater than you could have ever been as individuals. Marriage is a merger. It is not a desperate plea for a half of an individual to join to another half of an individual, and both of you thinking that you're going to complete the other. God, your completion comes from God and from within yourself. And if you're getting married for anything, any reason other than you want to share what God has blessed you with in life with someone else, and you want to do life with someone honestly and sincerely, you're getting married for the wrong reason. So now many times women want to be married because they need an identity or think they need an identity or to prove their worth. A lot of women marry men they're not even in love with, just to fulfill certain personal voids. And number 4, I've gotten in enough trouble. Don't y'all send me a lot of crazy stuff on my thing, please. Number 4, it's just the truth. And finally, this is what you got to come clear with in your mind. You know, you're 35, 40, 50, 55, 60, 65, and you're struggling with this thing. I want to be married. I don't have a man. And that's all you're obsessed with. You need to hear this. Number 4, and finally, you need to stop obsessing over this, and you need to focus on your legacy. In other words, what is your life going to amount to when you're done? What is your life going to be remembered for? Your legacy generally has nothing to do with anyone else. Your legacy is what you will leave in the earth when you're done. Now, what will that be? What will you leave in the earth? What will you have uniquely accomplished or done that will live on beyond you? What will your legacy be? You know, as a pastor, I've done hundreds of funerals. And at funerals, they read, they basically read the obituary or the life story of the individual. And they tell you, you know, whatever the individual accomplished, 3/4, if not 90% of the obituary is about the individual accomplishments of the individual, of the individual person. And maybe at the end, sometimes not, maybe at the end they'll mention, and he and she was married to, and they had X amount of children, and they had X amount of grandchildren. But most of what is mentioned in the obituary is what the person did as an individual. Obituaries don't usually read Lisa and Robert, or Robert and Lisa did X, Y, Z, and Robert and Lisa. No. Obituaries speak of what you did as an individual. And here's the kicker. Here's a question. Could you be at this stage in your life so consumed with a relationship that you're actually wasting your life? You should be working on your legacy while you wait on your mate. Your legacy should be a full-time occupation. Now, what do I mean by that? You should be so consumed with your purpose and your passion and your gifts and your goals that you don't have time to sit up all day mourning and in depression rather, because you don't have a man right now. You should be so consumed with your goals that you don't have time to look at the calendar and say, well, another year's passed. And no. You should have your agenda laid out for tomorrow, what you're going to be doing tomorrow. And your agenda should occupy all or most of your time tomorrow. And when the good Lord sends one that is suitable for you, he should find you doing what you do. Not sitting around desperately waiting on somebody to rescue you. That rhymed, didn't it? He should find you doing what you do, not sitting around desperately waiting on somebody to rescue you. Now, in Matthew 25, and I'll just mention it and I'm done. Matthew chapter 25, starting somewhere around verse 14, you can read it in your leisure. There you have the parable of a master that left his resources in the hands of servants. And the Bible says that he took a long journey, but then he suddenly returned. And when he returned, he demanded an accounting of each of them. 2 of them had increased what the master gave them. 1 did not, and the master called him wicked and took what he had. The thing you have to understand is that your life is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your stewardship, and it's your gift back to God. Will you waste your life sitting here day after day after day after day, worrying about something only God can manufacture anyway, and that is put the right person in your path? Or would your time be better served fulfilling the purpose that God has put you here for, committing yourself to a daily agenda that moves you forward and blesses someone else? I just stopped by to tell you that you're greater than you realize. You're more beautiful than you've acknowledged. And your life is not to be spent in depression and in torment over when is he going to show up. Live your best life and pray to recognize him when he does. And get your mind right. Grow up in some areas, because in some cases you've not necessarily been qualified to be anybody's wife just yet, not a real husband. So I wanted to just encourage you that life is truly about more than making it to the altar. I thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. I apologize for being so long. And I hope this doesn't come across as harsh, because I don't mean it that way. I just see so many women that are struggling, beautiful women who are struggling because of age. And the older you get, the more beautiful you are, but you got to know it. You have to own it to sell it. You got to own that beauty. And when you own it, you'll be able to sell it to the world. And the right one will be able to recognize, because beauty is not external. Beauty is essence. It is internal. And so I thank you. Hey, if this is your kind of thing, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel. Give me a thumbs up. Send me your comments. You can reach out to Lisa and or I at pastorrcblakes@gmail.com. Don't forget to go to my website, rcblakes.com, and sign up for my email list. There's some exciting things that are coming out. We're getting ready to relaunch our website. It's going to be on a whole different level. We're going to be offering courses. You know, the first one that I'm putting together even now is Transcending the Father Wound. I mentioned a little bit of the content in today's conversation. And so for those of you that love what we do on social media, we're going to take it even a step deeper with these programs that we're going to be offering for those that desire to take advantage of that. It's going to be amazing. But go to my website, rcblakes.com, sign up for my email list so you can be notified when that new site launches and when these programs are offered. I'm tired. All right, God bless you. Hey, remember, you're on top and you're going higher. God has more in store for you. But before I let you go, I want to pray for you. Father, I thank you today for everything that was said. I pray, God, that my articulation also translated your love for your daughters. And God, I thank you for every person that has been struggling. I thank you that you are breaking that stronghold of depression and torment. And God, you're bringing freedom into the lives of your people. You're giving them a true glimpse of their value and their worth as individuals. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, God bless you. You're on top. You're going higher. God has more in store for you. Talk to you next time.